Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks for joining. Tonight I want to talk about acknowledging your wrongs. And sometimes that's very difficult to do. For me, I'm very emotional. So I'm led most of the time by my emotions. And sometimes logic goes out the window until I have to reel it back in and then realize, okay, wait a minute, I played a part in this. And that's not easy to do. The problem is that people are stubborn and people are prideful and they don't always take account for what they do to cause or play a part in a situation. It's so easy to point fingers and place blame. But what we fail to do is acknowledge our part in it. And if we do acknowledge it, we very rarely will say, hey, you know what? I played this part and I'm sorry. And for someone who's prideful or someone who's stubborn, that's very difficult to do. But I had to do that in a situation where I looked at how I was feeling, and that led by the way I responded. Instead of taking myself out of the situation and saying, okay, what part did you play in it? And when I did that, I realized I played an even bigger part than I wanted to admit to in the beginning. But I'll say it takes a strong person to be able to do that. Because when you start to take accountability, it's a whole other level. Most people don't take accountability. Most people want to just place blame and they don't want to take account for the things that they did. That's a very dangerous slope. And the reason that I say that it's dangerous is because you do not realize the effect that you have on somebody else. You are not thinking about that other person's needs, that other person's wants, or that other person's hurts. All you're thinking about is trying to prove your point and not taking account into what you did to cause the damage. And when you take a step back and you realize your part in it, the picture becomes even clearer. And now you have a responsibility. You can either take accountability for the things that you've done and said, or you continue to place blame and it goes nowhere. Either way, I'm about making sure that the other person isn't feeling what I feel. That's just how I'm wired. I always tend to think about somebody else's feelings, even against my own. And I call it a blessing and a curse because my heart is big and I love hard. And I typically get the short end of the stick and I typically get hurt a lot. And it's just one of those things where I have to remind myself I'm worthy and remind myself that I deserve to be chased after and fought for, and I deserve apologies. I shouldn't always have to be the one, but that's again why I said a blessing and a curse. But we need to take accountability for the things that come out of our mouths and the things that we do, and we need to take account for the way that we have affected somebody else. We don't always know how someone else is affected unless they verbally tell you. You don't always know how that other person's affected. And so I try my hardest to take account as often as I can. It's not always a quick thing, but when I do, I get it. And I always own up to my part in it. So I just want to encourage you, take accountability for the things that you do. If you've harmed someone or you may have caused damage or said something or did something and you're not thinking about that other person's feelings, maybe take a minute to think about how what you did to them. Take your eyes off yourself for a second and think about that other person. And I want to continue this conversation. I'm not done with this topic, but I want some feedback before I continue. So drop some comments in the section below and let's have a conversation. That's Tina's Truth.